Marriage is beautiful. It's hard, but it's beautiful. Work can be beautiful, hard, but beautiful. And when you combine marriage and work, those things can be beautiful, but they can also be really, really hard. My guests today recently completed the largest research study on working married couples in the U.S. and spent the last few years interviewing couples who want to stay in love, change the world, and raise a healthy family. Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of stillbeingmolly.com, and this show is all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, a CEO, nonprofit director, community leader, or just an incredible person who's trying to make a positive impact not only through their personal life, but also with their career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact wherever you are. My guests this week are Jeff and Andrew Shinabarger. Jeff is the co-author of Love or Work: Is It Possible to Change the World, Stay in Love, and Raise a Family? And the founder of Plywood People, a nonprofit in Atlanta leading a community of startups doing good. His work has been featured in things like Forbes Inc, CNN, USA, Weekend, and Huffington Post. He's the co-founder of Q, mentored over 600 startups, and created the largest social entrepreneur event in the South called Plywood Presents. His wife, Andrew Shinabarger, is an adventurer who loves seeing the world. She was born in Bolivia, and she has a deep passion for building community with marginalized people groups. She works for Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta as a physician assistant and is adjunct professor for Emory University. She is an advisor to Plywood People, host of the Love or Work podcast, and co-author of the Love or Work book alongside her husband, Jeff. These two are incredible. I have long admired their work through Plywood People and Plywood Presents, and it was just such a joy to have them on the show. You are going to get so much out of this conversation, whether you are married or single. This is a conversation for everyone. But before I get to my conversation with Andrew and Jeff, I got to ask you a couple questions. First, who doesn't love snail mail? I love me some snail mail, but I'm not talking about junk mail or Amazon Prime packages. I'm talking about good old-fashioned special snail mail. You can make this Christmas season special and send a gift through Amazuma. At checkout, what you can do is you can add a personalized message, and the Amazuma team will handwrite into any card you choose. Don't let 2020 end on a bad note. Let's send cheer to those we love. Head on over to shopwithmolly.com for a special discount. Now, are you one of my loyal listeners of the podcast? Have you ever wanted to support some Business with Purpose swag? Well, guess what? You can now get my exclusive Do Something Good with Purpose on Purpose tee through GoX. The design is incredible, but here's the thing. GoX seeks to do better in everything they do. Better pay for employees, better fabrics made here in the U.S., better quality in their finishes, and better for the planet with recycled materials. They don't believe they have to sacrifice anything in order to care for the hands making their fair trade apparel. Ultimately, their purpose at GoX is to connect you, the consumer, with their makers in Haiti and Kansas City. It's your purchases that sustain fair wage jobs to liberate workers from poverty and empower them in their families and communities. The end product is a shirt that feels good and does good. Shop your exclusive Business with Purpose sustainable, eco-friendly tee and more with purpose today at goxapparel.com/Molly Stillman and use the code podcast20 for 20% off. Now on to my conversation with Andrew and Jeff. Andrew and Jeff, I am so honored to have you on the show. Welcome to the Business with Purpose podcast. How are you?
We're great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's good to be here with you.
So I know that this is not actually how we met, but for my listeners, they are going to laugh at this because for a long time, I mean, you guys are going to be episode 224, and out of probably 224 episodes,
I would say 120 of the guests know Bethany Tran. And so it's just, we laugh all the time as to how many people Bethany knows. And then the fact that you guys also know Bethany, I'm just like, for my listeners, and be like, who does Bethany not know? And I think the answer is no one. I think Bethany knows every person on planet Earth. How did you guys get connected with Bethany?
Yeah, that's a good question. Bethany went through some of our programming early on when she was starting her business. And yeah, it was fun to kind of connect with her and see her. It's fun to see her vision come to life. And
Yeah.
we even for a while, there's a project that we were involved in Guatemala that we connected her with. It was my brother-in-law who was leading the project. And
Was that La
for a while,
Limonada?
yeah, well, that's another one down there. There's two different projects down there, but the other one, my brother-in-law led, and so they collaborated on a bunch of stuff down there. And so anyway, we've had multiple connections, and one time I got Andre her shoes as a gift. So,
Cool.
you know,
That's a good
all
gift.
the
I
things.
benefited.
Yeah, that is a good gift. I love that. Well, I just wanted to bring that up really quick because for people that have been listening from the beginning, they're just going to be like, that is insane that Bethany knows literally everyone. But I want to get to know you guys. So I was familiar with you first through your work with Plywood People, but you guys just released a book. Congratulations. You birthed a book, baby.
I know.
And
Pretty.
it is really pretty. It is really pretty. I'm holding it in my hand. It's called Love or Work. Is it possible to change the world, stay in love, and raise a healthy family? And this is just such a message that so many couples need, especially this year, as there have been a lot of couples that suddenly are working in very close quarters. So before we kind of dive into the book and where that all came from and Plywood People, I want you guys to give us the Jeff and Andre 101. So who are you? How did you meet? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, let's see. So I'm Andre, and I am a physician assistant, and I work in a Grady Health System, which is a big, like, kind of underserved hospital system here in Atlanta. And we take care of just poor, underserved kind of communities here. And then born in Bolivia, Spanish is my first language. What else? And then we met in college, and been married 18 years and have two kids, 10 and 8.
Yeah.
You
And
give your spiel.
she turned me down for a good 6 months
I
before
like
she
it. Playing hard to
finally
get.
said yes. Yeah, definitely played hard to get. We
It was worth it.
relationally, if people follow the Enneagram, I'm an 8, she's a 1. We battle on everything, including a fight 10 minutes before we got on the call today. So this is like life for the Shinabargers.
Tell them what you do.
Yeah. And I lead an organization called Plywood People. Plywood is a nonprofit in Atlanta that leads a community of startups doing good. And we've worked with over 800 projects. One of those was Bethany's, like you said, but
Yeah.
a bunch of different social enterprises or nonprofits. We help get them off the ground. We have training. And for me, personally, like, I love getting involved in these projects and using whatever wisdom that I've been given or experience and mistakes that I've gone through or people that I know to connect their projects to get them to grow. And in the midst of this, that's what kind of launched this book. Was Andre and I, we feel this tension. We very deeply each care about our work.
Yeah.
And we saw it throughout all these people in our community there too. And it's hard to maintain it all. So that's what led to this moment. Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for just a little bit more about Plywood People, because what you do is so unique. And obviously, this is a lot of where my heart lies. I mean, it's why I started a podcast to interview people who run social enterprises and businesses that are changing the world, or just different type of impact purposeful businesses. And so this is obviously a big part of my heart. And so where did that kind of stem from for you? Where did the idea for it come from? Did you have experience in social enterprise prior to Plywood People?
Yeah, I have experience is a funny thing. I have a lot of failures, a lot of things that worked, a lot of things that didn't. But early on, Andre and I started this little project called Gift Card Giver, where we collect unused gift cards and give them to people in need. So it's like, holiday season, you get all these gift cards, you use $40 out of a $50 gift card. Well, people started sending these to us from all over the nation, and we would give them to just people that we had a kind of it was like a foundation, but it's all in gift cards. It literally had no real money.
Yeah.
And because of that, people started connecting me to other people with ideas. And through that project, we gave away a few $100,000 in gift cards, which was crazy. And people started saying, wow, you're the gift card guy. Like, can you give this other person advice on how to get their crazy idea off the ground? And so it started happening over and over and over again. I mean, weekly, I would have multiple emails of someone that I very loosely know connecting me with this young, not always young, but usually young entrepreneurial mind that cared about issues of injustice or social issues or you name it. And they had an angle that they want to do it. And for some reason, these people thought I could help them just based off one project.
Yeah.
And so then from those connections, we just had a lot of opportunities and we started bringing those people together with community. And that's how it began. I
love that. Where did the name Plywood People come from?
Yeah, so I was in transition between a previous job and this work. And I went into all these different projects all over the world. Andre and I traveled to Rwanda. I went to the Dominican Republic. We went to Guatemala, Kenya. We went to all these different places, even places in the United States, hurricane relief, things like that. Over the course of 1 year, I was telling people stories. And every place I went, I saw plywood as a short-term fix to a long-term problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met these people that were giving their lives to stick with this place, And I just felt like more and more people were going to get into the space where they would see problems and dedicate their lives to addressing it. And so we just started referring to these people as Plywood People.
I love that. That's such a cool backstory. I'm very much interested in the kind of history behind different company brand names, and especially in the social enterprise industry, there's always a story behind the name, and so I'm fascinated by it. Okay, so the book Love or Work. So this was something that obviously came out of a desire that both of you had to kind of share this message. What was the personal journey that you guys went on that kind of led you to write this book?
Yeah, I mean, as Jeff said, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people starting businesses. And I mean, you know what that's like. It's hustle. It is a lot of work. And in that, we just saw a lot of relationships falling apart, a lot of families not making it, just a lot of difficulty with relationships in the midst of it. And it's hard. I get it. You just are in grind mode and hustle mode for a really long time. And so I think we just kept having meetings with people thinking that we were going in to have a business meeting and talk about their project. And then it ended up, crying and
it's a counseling session
about their, marriage or their boyfriend or, not remembering the last time they had a date night. And so it kept happening over and over. And we just saw that need in the community that we just thought, let's see if other people are having the same struggle. We feel it. And so it just led us to just being curious and start asking the question, like, is it possible to really do it all? Or are we just kind of coming up with some like idealistic thing in our brain,
Yeah, like when you look at some of the historical leaders we count as heroes, like heroes in this space, most of them had pretty rough family lives. Like it was somebody took a hit because they pursued this heroic thing.
Yeah.
And so we were like, man, maybe we can't do this. And anyway, so we started just asking people this question and interviewing.
Yeah, and it's interesting that this came out this year, because I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, and this is not a conversation about the pandemic, but I think it is timely and kind of fits in with what we're talking about, because I remember at the beginning, my husband and I were saying, I was like, I bet you at the end of this, we're going to see a surge in divorces and a surge in babies. Like it's going to be one or the other. Because
it's probably both. It's both.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. There are a lot of couples that are struggling. And especially when you bring kids into the mix and you bring virtual school and you bring just all of these different factors, it's incredibly stress inducing. My husband's a financial advisor, and you would just like when he gets couples in his office, he's like, half the time I feel like I'm a marriage counselor because like, especially when it comes to finances. And sometimes he's like, sometimes I just have to sit back and like let the two of them duke it out because he's like, I am not going to get involved in this. But he's like, sometimes I'm witness to incredibly personal conversations. So, obviously you have your Lover Work podcast, and this is something that you guys started really talking a lot about. What are some of the things that you have seen kind of come out of beginning to talk about this message and to really focus on or help couples focus on their marriage and show them that like you can have an amazing, strong marriage and you can have a great career and you can have a great family? It's not an either or situation.
Yeah. I mean, we've interviewed over 100 couples on our podcast. And then we also did a research project and basically surveyed 1,500 couples, both working couples too. So we really wanted to have a really broad point of view and perspective so that we could gain a lot of information, not just subjectively through our interviews, but more objectively through data. And so, there's been a lot of common themes. But I think, for me, honestly, personally, I really did not want to have kids. I was pushing kids for as long as possible because in my mind, I just thought that I would never be able to pursue a career and like move up in a career if I had kids too.
Yeah.
And our data showed that, 83% of couples say that working has made them better parents. And to me, that was just so encouraging because, before I had kids, I was like, it's just not, you can't do it. I'm not going to be a good mom and actually have a career. I got to figure that I have to choose. And now I think that shows that you really don't have to choose and that you can still work and be a good parent.
Yeah.
And as a woman who, I think a lot of women feel a lot of guilt if they're working, feel like they're away from their kids, all those things. Yes, we all feel it. And that just little data point just gave me so much encouragement to know that that's not really necessarily true. You can let go a lot of that guilt.
Yeah. And I mean, the truth is, this is how we want to operate. As a modern couple. I care very deeply about Andre's purpose and vice versa. Now, have I messed that up many, many, many times and prioritized my own purpose over hers daily, right? But that's one of the tension points that we learned in the research is only 3 in 10 people feel encouraged by their partner to pursue their work and dreams. Only 3 in 10. And so like that, I think when we started digging into this, it was like, okay, that is a core issue that should be a marriage issue. I've never read this in any book, that you should be in support of your partner's purpose. That's not been a topic brought up in any marriage book before.
Yeah.
But if I don't value her purpose, I don't value her, So anyway, we've dug and learned a lot throughout that research about that stuff.
Well, I really appreciate you kind of sharing that because, well, one, I love research and data. I can nerd out on that stuff all day long. But this has been, I'll just say, like personally, this has been a big tension for me, especially in the last 8 months. Because when lockdown hit, all of a sudden, I'm now, the time that I had to work was when my kids were at school. And now they're home. And now all of a sudden I'm homeschooling and I'm, we can't go out to restaurants. And so I'm cooking 3 meals and I feel like I'm cleaning the house 84 times a day. And then there's like always somehow dirty clothes why do children keep wearing clothes? I don't know, but they're always dirty. Like there's just so much laundry. And, I just felt this tension of I can't work because I have all this other stuff. And if I did work, then I felt like I was sacrificing or I was being selfish because then my family was being neglected or something these lies that I began to feed myself. And so gradually over the last 7 to 8 months, I've really had to start to kind of let go of that. And, just this week, on Wednesdays, my son he's in preschool. He does go to school in person. It's just a short, preschool day. And so, But on Wednesdays, my daughter only has like a morning meeting, and then it's basically flex time the rest of the day. It's like the one day that she's not on Zoom. And so I decided, I was like, you know what? We're having an impromptu mother-daughter date. And so we went and got pedicures. We went to get lunch. Like, we went to a park. And then we got home, and my entire morning, I spent with her, which was amazing. But then that afternoon, I had to get some work done. And so, but she was then like, well, Mom, I want to hang out with you more the rest of the day. And I was like, honey, and then I started feeling really guilty. And I was like, no, I spent 4 one-on-one hours with her this morning. Like, it's not that I'm like counting, but I have to get some work done. So it was just like, honey, I love you, but I also love my job and I want to keep it. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to answer these emails. So yeah, I really appreciate that, because it is a tension that I think a lot of women, especially men do too, but women more often than not feel of that they have to choose, that they can't do both. And that if they are working while their kids are running around, then they're somehow a bad parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, that's real.
I mean, with the pandemic too, women are 4 times more than men coming out of, falling out of the workforce and staying home and all of that. So like, we get it. I mean, the book we did not know would come out during the pandemic.
Yeah.
That's unexpected, but the fact that it has, I think, is a great resource for people. And I think our big goal in this is that, I know we're together all the time during this COVID season, and we're always around each other and everybody's in the house, and it's a lot of together, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot of connection. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're seeing each other's hearts and we're getting to the heart issues with each other. It means that, we're cleaning and laundry and blah, 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 and doing all that, but it doesn't mean that our hearts are connecting. And so I think this book, like, our goal is that it helps you connect heart-wise more and get deeper into issues of work and love and kids. And, there's a lot of questions at the end that we want you to talk about with your partner. And so our goal is that this actually just connects people more. I mean, even you were talking about, when was the last time you bought a book that will help you and your partner? When was the last time that happened?
That you really actually in any way invested in your relationship.
Yeah.
And
like, you invest a ton in kids' toys.
Right.
But like,
or your kids' sports or your kids' activities, or, we invest so much in these other ways that main person, that person that's supposed to be your like one person, your safe place, your spot, we're not investing in, and we're not investing in that part. And so,
hey, I want to say something to you, Molly.
Yeah.
I think the story you just shared is probably the story of everyone listening.
Yeah.
Like, every single person heard that and was like, I did. Yeah. I had that thought yesterday and the day before and the day before.
Yep.
While you're crying in the bathroom on the floor.
Yeah. And, one of the things that was really interesting that we found in talking to all these people is, like, especially to women, the reason why so many women take pride in their work is because they want to paint a picture for their daughters that is a new path forward. And a lot of the men that are connected to these women through long-term commitments, they want the same thing. They want their daughters to see a different image of what their mother is.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. I think you making those choices are not easy today. And I'm not saying every woman has to work. I'm not saying every man has to work. That's not. But your choices are painting a new picture for these children of what their possibilities could be. That's a beautiful picture.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that, because my mom passed away when I was a senior in high school, but my mom is somebody who has by far had the greatest influence on my life. And my mom was a writer. She bucked a lot of female trends in general. She served in Vietnam. And when she came home from Vietnam, obviously out of all the hundreds of thousands of people that served in Vietnam, only 11,000 were women. So she was a very small percentage of women that served in the military, especially during that time. And when she came home, women were just especially women veterans in a very unpopular war, were just not given the respect and things that most veterans are today. And so she wrote a memoir called Home Before Morning. That was her nonfiction account of war. And it was actually the first female perspective of war that was published in a nonfiction perspective of war. And so I remember growing up, like she was heavily involved in the Vietnam Veterans Association and the VA, and she would travel and speak and teach at schools. And I remember that about her and that being a big passion, but I never thought that she was a bad mom and that she was like neglecting me. In fact, she took me to a lot of those events, and it's funny, like, and also my dad, who was a very like traditional, I mean, both my parents were born in the 40s. Like they were one of 5 like Catholic, it's just very traditional households. And my dad was so supportive. And it's funny because my mom used her maiden name when she was in anything that was like public facing, because that was what she wrote her book under. And so my dad would literally write like Mr. Van de Vanner, like, which is my mom's maiden name. So like, or like Mr. Linda, like he just, and so to see that dynamic. Yeah, exactly. Like to see that dynamic of my dad fully supporting my mom's pursuits and to see her pursue her passion and left a big impression on me. And yet there is still that tension that I struggle because that is so outside the cultural norm. Still in 2020, that is still, there's all this messaging that is contradictory to that to this day, which is crazy.
Yeah. And I think, with my kids too, and with what I do, I think the other thing with working that it does for your kids is it takes their brain outside of just right here. Mm-hmm. Like when I leave for work and they're like, no, Mom, don't leave, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, clinging to my legs and all of that. Like, I really want to stop and I do stop and say, where am I going today? What am I going to do? What is my work? And they're like, you're going to help people when they're sick. Like, yes. Do you know how many hundreds of people out there are very sick? That's what I'm doing, you know? And so I think it's important that kids see a bigger worldview, like for you could see this whole veteran world that you didn't even know about, you know? And so I think it's, whatever you do, it's important for kids to see that it's outside of this like immediate little safe bubble of home, because there are hurting people and there are bigger needs and it's a bigger world out there.
I'm going to take a quick break from my conversation with Andre and Jeff to thank the partners of this show. When it comes to gift giving, I'm not perfect, but I do my best to give gifts that my friends and family will love, as well as empowers the person who made that item. Today's sponsor makes it easy. The Lemonade Boutique stocks fun and meaningful gifts that also give back. Every purchase empowers the artisan who made it to take life's lemons and make lemonade. Shop at thelemonadeboutique.com, and listeners of the Business with Purpose podcast can save 15% by using the code PURPOSE15 at checkout. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a couple people on my list that every holiday season, they are just the people on my list that I don't know what to get them. They have everything. And so I'm looking for a really special or unique gift to get them. And one of our partners of the show, Simple Switch, is my new go-to place for those unique gift items. And I actually have the founder, Rachel Coyce, who is no stranger to the show. You've heard from her. She's been a guest on this show. She's here with me to kind of share some of the really unique gifts that Simple Switch has for you this holiday season. Take it away, Rachel.
Hey, Molly. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I also love that about Simple Switch. Being the owner, it also helps me get the gifts for people on my list. But we have a couple favorites this year. One is that we just got a new wine company and a new chocolate company. So for those people who have everything, you can never have too many treats. And I think that is a really great way to treat people this year. Another one is we have some engravable items. And so maybe they have everything, but they might not have something with their name engraved into a beautiful wooden, whether that be cufflinks, journal, flask. So yeah, there's a lot of fun options. We've grown a ton this year. So if you came and shopped with us last year, this year's going to be even better.
I mean, what person in your life would not want to be gifted some chocolate or wine or something that is really personal and very meaningful? These are just incredible gifts, and there are over 3,000 products that you can get at simpleswitch.org. So simply go to simpleswitch.org and use the coupon code Purchase with Purpose for 20% off your order. So you're not only doing good in the world, but you're also saving money. So go to simpleswitch.org, use that coupon code Purchase with Purpose for 20% off. Now back to my conversation with Andre and Jeff. Now, this is kind of a continuation of what we were talking about, is just how the book really addresses sort of this conversation of today in households and relationships, and how a lot of things have changed in, the last few years. But, what did this really look like 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And where do you think it's going to look? What do you think it's going to look like 10 years from now? And maybe how has the pandemic kind of played into that?
Well, I will say every person that reads it or is listening right now has a different story, just like you have a different story. Your family of origin.
Yeah.
I can't overgeneralize that in any way. I will say this. We are, we've never said our age on the air before. Well, we
don't need
we
to
better. I will say this. When we were in our 20s, that's when I think this movement of social entrepreneurship, this real deep passion for purpose in our work started taking incredible shape for all of our lives. And I don't think that's going backwards.
Yeah.
I think that's only moving forward. And so I feel like families of the future are going to look more and more like this. They're going to look like two people that care very deeply about their work because it's part of who they are and what they're designed to do and be. And they're going to live that out every day. And that's going to be the example of the family. The question then becomes, how do you maintain this relationship between the two of you?
Right.
How do you maintain trying to raise kids that also understand that tension that you felt, right? Like how, and how does everybody sustain and stay healthy in the middle of it? That's the hard part. The question, what was interesting is as we talked to all these people, nobody doubted the question. It was like,
95% of people think that you can do it.
Do it all.
You can change the world, stay in love, and raise a healthy family.
Yeah.
So 95% of participants think that.
But they're all exhausted doing it.
Yeah.
They're all tired. They're all exhausted. Nobody's exercising. Nobody goes to counseling.
They don't take vacations. 60% of the people don't take vacations. It just goes on and on and on.
So it's like, yes, but you're then emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of that in an unhealthy state. So I think, we are trying to kind of talk about like, okay, maybe there's some ways practically of how you can do it, but in a healthier way. So,
yeah. Now,
what do you think? What do you think? Do you think this is all good? Is this the direction we're headed? Is the world just everything changed all of a sudden?
Well, that's an interesting question. In terms of family dynamic, I definitely think we're seeing a change. And I think too, because we are seeing a massive, massive shift to people working from home because of the pandemic. All of a sudden, all these businesses realized, oh, we actually can work remotely. And that's going to save us a ton of money because we don't have to pay rent for a business, or we don't have to, or, for like an office. I mean, my husband definitely found that. I mean, he had working in his office, there were anywhere from, 6 to 8 people at a time working in his office. They now almost entirely all work remotely. And so he's actually in this position where he's like, well, I still need an office because he meets with clients and he doesn't want to bring clients to the house. So he needs a place to meet, but he doesn't need this like giant office. So he's trying to find a smaller office. And so I think you're going to start to see that more and more and more. And I mean, I think of a ton of my friends who used to work from offices and now they all work from home. And so there's this massive shift that I think we're going to continue to see to people working from home. And then because of that, that gives couples and families more flexibility to be able to be home with their kids. And I mean, like you were saying, Andre, about how, so many women during this time have been leaving the workforce. And I mean, I can think of off the top of my head 5 of my friends who have had to either quit or downsize their jobs in order to be home with their kids, and the challenge that that's put on families. But then in some ways, some of my friends have discovered that they love to homeschool, and so that they now are homeschooling, and that was something they never had considered before. So I think you are going to see this massive shift in dynamic. And in some ways, I think it's going to be really beneficial. And in some ways, it is going to be very, very difficult. And some, I had a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago just about how there are a lot of couples that all of a sudden are, again, they're in these close quarters and they're like, I don't know that I actually like this person, and that's terrible.
Yeah, it's really hard.
I'm really thankful that my husband and I have been married almost 9 years, together 11 and 10 years. And, we still to this day, we really like each other. And even after being together all the time, we're just kind of like, oh, this is actually pretty great. We get to be around each other all the time. We really, we're the kind of people, if one of us has to travel, I'm like, no, I don't want to be away from you, which is sad and awesome at the same time.
Well, I mean, sadly, that's probably not the case for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the divorce rates going up now and everything, I think actually that so many people have kind of been really good roommates.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
Really good at managing the kids' schedules and managing, you go here, I'll go there.
Yep.
And you're kind of on this great roommate scenario together. And now that there's not a lot of places to go and there's not a lot of, ways to escape or travel, now it's all kind of building, and the things
100%.
that might have never been addressed before are now all bubbling to the surface in
100%.
this high pressure cooker scenario right now. So
yeah, there used to be a lot of ways where you could mask some of the challenges by retreating the situations, right?
Yep.
And now, especially this year, everything has come together and you can't mask those things anymore.
Yep.
And so sometimes that brings out really good, healthy, hard conversations,
Yeah.
And the question most couples have are they willing to stay on the same team long term in the midst of this? And that's a hard question for people to ask. I mean, there's for sure people listening that aren't sure where they're at related to that same team mentality. And so we recommend getting some help, get some counseling, open that conversation up to really close friends so you can get feedback, see what you're wrong about in the situation and what you're right about in the situation.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting year. It's an interesting year to launch a book about all this because everybody's got an opinion.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Everyone's got attention, but for me, it's brought me closer to Andre doing this project together.
I love that.
It's made me see things within her that I didn't value previously.
That's really encouraging.
So it's been a fun project to do together.
Yeah. And then this is kind of the other thing I was thinking about while you were talking that kind of goes back to even the question where you're saying, what do you think? And maybe this is a controversial statement. I don't know. Everything I feel like is a controversial statement these days, but I still to this day am more convinced than ever that the nuclear family and the importance of family is more important than ever. And there's a lot of messaging out there that is no, we should, we don't need nuclear families. Now, I'm not saying that to if you are single and listening that your life is not that is not what I am saying at all. I have some amazing friends who are doing amazing things in their singleness. And that is a whole nother conversation. I love you. Please don't hear that. And also this is not to say that if you're married that you have to have kids. I am not saying that either, because I have some amazing couple friends who just kids are they're either not able to have kids or they don't feel called to have children, and that's okay. And they also they love on my kids and they love to hang out with my kids, and then they gladly send them back. So bless you, those people. So, but that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying though is just the importance of family and strong marriages. And when was the last time you watched a sitcom where there's just a really strong marriage and they're not fighting and they're not they fight, but it's not Like it's not a toxic relationship. It's just two people who genuinely love each other and fight for each other. And the only one I can really think of is like This Is Us. But even then, like there's still struggle there. But This Is Us is so relatable in so many ways. But I'm more passionate than ever about just encouraging my friends in their marriages and encouraging my friends to date each other. I mean, during the pandemic, my husband and I instituted at-home date nights. And it's just been so much fun. And we have putt-putted through our house, and we have learned card games, and we have done all these things that, we would maybe go out and do, but we couldn't. So we did it from home. And so
I love that.
All that to say that it's something that I really very much care about. And I really appreciate the message of this book, because I think that really does speak to that.
Yeah, the one phrase that we say consistently in the midst of this work that we do, because again, we care very deeply about our work, that if we change the world and we lose our family, we lose.
Yeah.
And for us, that means at times we have to say no to our work and prioritize our kids. And I think that's been kind of a reminder for us consistently to check back in, to see how our kids are doing, see how each other are doing.
Yeah.
And then edit accordingly. Like,
the editing is so important. I mean, I think that's the thing that we forget about, is that you get to make a new rule if you need a new rule. You get to change what you previously set up that said was previously working last month that is no longer working this month. You get to change that. This is your family. This is your marriage. You guys get to change and readjust and edit accordingly. And I think so many times you're like, well, we said we were going to do this. So, and you're just like forcing this thing through that you're like, it's sucking the life out of you, but you said you were going to do it. So you got to do it, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it can be little things like just, who picks up the kids, or it can be like a lot bigger things of, I choose to stay home and do virtual school with my kids, and I'm literally dying inside. Whatever it is, you get to edit. You can say at any point, like, hey, I don't know, this just isn't working for me. Like, can we figure something else out? Can we find another way? Can we talk about options? Like, you can do that. And I think it matters, and it will really like help your relationship just ebb and flow and grow in whatever way it needs to do.
That's fantastic. Now, this is, I have two questions before we move to the get to know you round. And going back to the data, I don't know, potato. You've shared a couple data points. Are there any in particular that really surprised you in your research? Like you guys thought one thing going into it, and coming out of it, it was something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't realize that. So only 8% of couples have ever gone to counseling. That to me was like so low. I never thought that it was so low. I think maybe 20 or 30%, but 8% was crazy to me. And so just along with kind of what you're saying is like that idea of like investing in your relationship and investing in your marriage. And even if counseling maybe feels scary or not okay, like even just talking to somebody close and personal to you, that could help you, or that's further along in the journey, or, buying a book that helps you guys talk through some things, whatever it is. But just that idea that I couldn't believe how low that was.
A couple of stats that were super practical and kind of funny and sad, depending on how you look at it, is that 31% of couples have a shared calendar. Only 31%. So, okay, shared calendar. I don't know if you have kids.
Yeah.
And you're in a committed relationship and you don't have a shared calendar. Guess what? The chances of you staying together long term is very, very low because you're going to fight about things every day because you don't know what each other's doing or where they're going, right?
Yep.
On a practical level, if you do nothing else, like open up Google Calendar and like share it with your partner, it'll make things better. I promise you.
Yes.
So that was a funny one. Do you have a shared calendar?
We do. We very much do. And it's color coded. No, it's color coded. I mean, it's not like it's like I have my one that's connected to my email. He has one that is connected to his email, but it's shared so that we can see it. And then we can put things on each other's calendar. So, if I, like this morning, because my husband works from home half the time, like he's here. And last night I was like, just so you know, I'm going to have to be in the office at 9:30 because his desk is right there. So I was like, you can either sit there and listen to me interview, or you're going to have to go work from downstairs for a little while. So,
Can you imagine not having a shared calendar?
Yep.
How would you operate, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah. So that was a big one that was super practical. The other is this, that 59% of the people we surveyed do not use all their vacation time. 59%. And so in the midst of the exhaustion that it takes to maintain it all, one thing we really harp on is that you have to step away and have times of togetherness, whether it's just as a couple or as a family. When people are paying you to use your vacation, like use your freaking vacation.
Use it.
Take a break and enjoy life. Get closer together. Because when you're on vacation, there's all forms of different intimacy that emerge that we need to keep going. So those are little things.
I love it. That's very practical, very helpful. Okay. And then my last question before the get to know you round is for you two. Really, what has been something that has been, other than a shared calendar, obviously, and what is something that you have implemented in your relationship, maybe even especially this year, or something that you've learned that has been really helpful or has really helped to strengthen your marriage?
Yeah. So we learned this from actually our sex therapist friend, but she calls it the 4-4-4 principle.
Ooh.
And basically it's just not sexy, but it's still good.
I mean,
Well, it's from your sex therapist. So I was like, well, let me get to my pen.
I mean, there's all kinds. We can add more questions.
Hey, I'm just saying we can make this a PG-13 episode. It's fine. I'm here for it.
You can definitely have sexy talk if you want to. No, but 4-4-4 is just this idea that I need 4 hours of individual time every week. He needs 4 hours of individual time every week. And then we need 4 hours together every week. So this is just this idea that like away time and away time from each other, away time from all of the life right now that is stuck in our house, invigorates you. It makes you excited then when you actually do come back together and have, 4 hours of together time. So, and that's like intentional together time. That's not like watching Netflix at night. So I think that has been super helpful for us, especially when, everything was on lockdown and all this kind of stuff, is that we still really valued each other, like made each other find ways for each other to get out, to get away, whatever it is, whether that's a walk, whether that's like a drive, around the neighborhood and through the drive-through to get some coffee, whatever it is, just that 4-hour time throughout the week. And the fact is that you're going to get yours. So it's this great like mutuality that is super helpful and beneficial. So that's been our saving grace.
And if you do that, there's a greater chance you'll have sex. It's going to be there. It increases your chances.
I'm just saying. I had a friend who is a single friend the other day, and she was like, I just need to ask, like, are the stronger marriages the ones that have sex all the time? And I was like, oh, well, I mean, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Yes. So hang out together, do it. And then I'm just saying. So anyway, sorry, Dad. Sorry if you're listening. Actually, I'm not. I have children. How do you think they got here?
You've had sex twice.
At least.
That's twice. Only twice.
Okay, this is really a super fun conversation. I could continue for a very long time. But now is the very important part of the show where we get to know you just a little bit more, even though we clearly have been doing that for the past 40 some minutes. Okay. But this is just where I ask some fun, lighthearted questions. So, and it can be who you can both answer, one of you, it's up to you. But this first one I thought was perfect for marriage conversation. Of all of your pet peeves, which one is the strangest?
Oh, I don't know.
I have one. You mean related to the other person, right?
Hey, I'm gonna let you decide.
Andre has an amazing ability to never clear the clock on the microwave. So
Yes.
she doesn't like the sound of it dinging, so she opens the door before it gets to 0, and so there's always like 3 seconds left.
I hate that dinging.
I have another friend that's like that.
And I always pay attention to the clock anyway. So I've had 18 years of not knowing the right time. I will just say
that is fantastic. Andre, your rebuttal.
What is mine of yours?
I mean, I have none. There's none.
Right.
Jeff is just perfect.
They're just not strange. You know what I mean? They're just like the total man thing. Like, when are you ever going to pick your clothes up? When are you ever going to put your socks somewhere?
Actually, I know what
socks, man.
I have an amazing ability to start the laundry.
Oh,
and then I don't transition it to the dryer.
And then he never tells me that he started it until 4 days later when I go to the wash and there is this smell.
The smell is the worst.
Yes. And then, yeah. So he definitely does that all the time.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Again, not strange. I feel like
I look at it as a benefit. I'm a really great starter. But that's it. That's it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. If you had to eat the same meal for dinner every night for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Rice and beans.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
I grew up on it. I'm from South America. It's literally like in my blood. I could eat rice.
Arroz con frijoles.
Sí. Todos los días.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Chicken wings.
Like a particular flavor or just like plain chicken wings?
It's actually from a specific place. There's a restaurant. There's one in Charleston and one in Atlanta called Monero. It's a Mexican restaurant that makes the best wings you could ever have.
Mexican
restaurant.
I would choose chicken wings.
This is how, listen, they're getting to know us. We're just trying to be an open book here.
I like it. You know? Okay. What song do you have to sing when it comes on the radio?
Wow.
Like if it comes on, it's just like another part of you takes over. And you're just like, I can't help it. All of a sudden, you find yourself singing along.
This is funny because Andre would always say, like, I sing all the songs and don't know.
He doesn't know
any
the
of
words.
the words.
He doesn't. He doesn't know the words, and so it drives me crazy. I'm like, don't sing it if you don't know the words. Rap, some Jay-Z rap.
Yeah.
Okay, so mine is ridiculous. It's so teeny bopper.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
It makes me so happy.
This happened just the other day in the car.
This is why I'm laughing.
My goodness.
Call Me Maybe
By Carly Rae Jepsen.
Yes.
Ray.
I turn into like my 13-year-old self.
Hey,
and
I just met you. And this is crazy. So here's my number. Yeah.
She literally came on the radio the other day and she said, "This is my jam." Like nobody said that about
Nobody has said that song in a long time. Is she the same one that did the Friday, gotta get down on Friday? Looking for the weekend.
I don't know. I don't listen to anything else except for that one song because it makes me so happy.
That is fantastic. Sadly, the only version that I have heard of Carly Rae Jepsen's "Call Me Maybe" in a very long time is the Kids Bop version, which is even worse somehow.
Oh yeah, no, I don't do Kids Bop. I can only do hers.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What was your favorite TV show to watch growing up?
The A-Team.
Oh, nice.
Every day. I mean, I like hustled to get to the A-Team.
I like
mean,
it.
whatever it took, that was going to be my show.
Yeah, I mean, younger, it was probably Full House, honestly.
Yeah.
It was like early on.
Yeah, that's true.
That was like the classic after school.
It's a heart, then hold on to. But see, that's another one. I don't really know the words, but like I can hold on to. That's how it goes.
That's
Hey,
exactly you.
I don't sound like that. It's much better. It's much better.
Is it like the Swedish Chef sing it? It's like a hurny hurn.
That's you.
That's totally it. I love it. Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, this is my last question. This is the question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, what does it mean to you to run a business with purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting question. In working with so many people that are trying to do this, one thing I've realized consistently is that the work that you're doing oftentimes coincides with your own personal story. I've seen a lot of people that try to run businesses that are purpose-minded, but they're doing it outside of their personal story and they quit very quickly.
Yeah.
And so for me, in leading my business, like this is part of my journey that I get to share with other people. And when I see that in other people, that encourages me. When I see their story and the work that they're doing, it lines up magically in some way. And so yeah, doing it on purpose is kind of tapping into what you're designed uniquely to do. And it's oftentimes part of your past story and you're serving it to other people in some unique way.
That is fantastic. Andre and Jeff, this was so much fun. I absolutely loved having you on the show. Thank you for taking time out of what I know is a, very cliche thing to say, but crazy busy time. Thank you so much. Truly, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, friend, I would love to know what you loved about this episode or if there was something that you learned. If you do, let me know on social media. You can find me at Still Being Molly or at Business with Purpose Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. And don't forget to use that hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast. Another thank you to our partners of the show, Simple Switch. Use code Purchase with Purpose for 20% off your first order. The Lemonade Boutique. Use code Purpose15 for 15% off at checkout. Ama's Uma. Go to shopwithmolly.com and use the code MollyHolidays for 20% off from now through Christmas. And GoX Apparel. Go to goxapparel.com/Molly Stillman and use the code podcast20 to snag your exclusive Business with Purpose tee and more. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. Be sure to check out the archives for past shows featuring incredible people who are changing the world with their businesses. And if you're one of my regulars, thank you so much for tuning in week and week out, and thank you for your support. Be sure to head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Radio Public, or wherever you listen to podcasts and click that subscribe button, which helps to make sure that you never miss a new episode of the pod. And while you're there, would you take a moment to leave a review? Leaving a review helps me to know what you're liking and how the show is personally impacting you. This show is produced by the incredible team at Third Wheel Media. Thanks so much for listening, and go do something good with purpose on purpose.